Uh, due to storage issues, the last few videos are really short, and I covered the most recent in the most curses actually in episode 2 how short why these videos why I'm redoing the Menger Sponge thingy. But the reason as to why the videos are so much shorter is because of storage issues that I didn't think to resolve until after I made those two. And here's the progress I have made without thinking, before I realized I had screwed up. Let's see. Menger Sponge. That's level 1, level 2, level 3. 3, okay, yeah. I am currently working on building the level 3 Menger Sponge. Oh yes. Who do you know, Boo? Don't you dare do this to me. Stop it, stop it, stop it. Okay. Okay. Whoops, almost screwed up there. Beep boop bop. Beep boop. Beep boop. Beep boop. Okay. All right. To raise the. Wait a second. We're only halfway up. It's not a third of the way up. But it doesn't matter because that doesn't change. have an idea, but I need to get the permission for that. And it's important to me that I get the permission, otherwise I might get myself in hot water with him. Don't want to be using some channels videos as a background noise without their permission. Okay. Oof. I've got to be as quick about this as possible, while also... Okay. Let's try and turn this on, see what I have, see what happens. Okay. Not sure. That's a genius idea, actually. People wouldn't care for me reacting to it while I'm making those sorts of things, but while I'm doing the thing, because they actually want to see what I'm reacting to, which is a bummer. Alright. Wow, okay, genius. That's pretty crazy. Okay. Oh no. It's trying to do that to me again. Alright. Productions. Alright, there we go. Okay. Videos. Yes. It's on a list that I gotta use. I gotta come up with. What the heck? What I'm doing. Curses. Alright, there we go. Oh no, what the heck just happened? I'm not having that. We're not putting up with that. Alright. Don't know how quick. I don't know how long it'll take him. Given he uploaded his most recent video yesterday, I'm sure he'd want to take a break from dealing with idiots like me on YouTube. So many zombies. I truly hate those. You're gonna have to deal with them in the usual way. And the most effective way. Goodbye. Don't need you exploding and killing and ruining my rocket. Okay. That's certainly peculiar. I was expecting him to avoid it, like, yeah, it's fire. What a shock. It's gotten amazing. Level 3. Holy crap. Alright. Then we just gotta wait. Someone who I know would not care about what is it? Manifest Destiny. That's my least favorite one out of all the... It's not my least favorite one. The one before it is even worse. Ooh! Historia Civilis. I forgot about him. No one is more fun for me to listen to than him. Get out of my face.
Technologically advanced.
Oops.
Fuzzy, but it's fair to say that the land doesn't my father know that died, and the Bronze Age died with it.
Good riddance.
The odd thing is that we barely understand why this happened. There are a bunch of theories, but nothing definitive. We'll get into that in a moment, but first, an introduction. When the Bronze Age began in Western Asia, it brought to an end an old world of tiny city-states, ruled by an oppressive class of totalitarian priests. The new world that came after was one full of possibilities. Vast, sweeping empires grew up seemingly out of nowhere. New religions, new systems of government, new cultures, new technology, all at once, all at a breakneck pace. Revolutions in farming led to massive food surpluses, which in turn allowed for these huge, bustling, multicultural cities. These new cities participated in a dynamic system of international trade, totally unlike the cloistered city-states that preceded them.
Hold on a minute. Okay.
By the late Bronze Age, the big players were Egypt, Cyprus, the Mycenaeans, the Hittite Empire, Assyria, and Babylonia. Each of these states, without exception, faced an existential crisis around the year 1200 BCE. Within a generation, most of them were gone.
Bye-bye.
Here's what we know. Sometime around the beginning of the 12th century, the king of Ugarit, a city in the Hittite Empire, wrote a letter to the king of Cyprus. My father, now the ships of the enemy have come. They have been setting fire to my cities and have done harm to the land. Doesn't my father know that all of my infantry and chariots are stationed in Kat, and that all of my ships are stationed in the land of Luca? Kat was another name for the Hittite capital, several hundred kilometers inland. Luca was several hundred kilometers to the west, on the Aegean coast. They have not arrived back yet, and so the land is thus prostrate, defenseless. May my father be aware of this matter. Now the 7 ships of the enemy which have been coming have done harm to us. Now if other ships of the enemy turn up, send me a report somehow so that I will know. The Hittites promised to send the king of Ugarit reinforcements, but it was too late. The last known letter to leave Ugarit reads, "When your messenger arrived, the army was humiliated and the city was sacked. Our food in the threshing floors was burned, and the vineyards were also destroyed. Our city is sacked. May you know it. May you know it."
What a bummer.
The king of Cyprus was well aware of what was happening on the mainland, but he had problems of his own. Cyprus was under attack at the same time. Several larger cities, especially on the western coast, were burned, and many of the smaller cities, further inland, were simply abandoned. Wealthy residents buried their valuables with plans to return once the crisis had blown over. They never returned.
Nope.
Things were different in Greece. For the last 100 years, the Mycenaeans had been plagued by internal instability. There are signs of destruction everywhere. The ruins of these cities leave evidence of massive fires, intermixed with arrowheads and weapons, which paints a pretty clear picture of a series of battles in which the defenders were ultimately defeated. Other cities leave evidence of smaller fires, confined solely to the palace structures in the center of the cities. This indicates some kind of popular uprising in which local kings were overthrown, not just in one city, but in many cities. Still, other cities show signs of being abandoned, either because of famine or natural disaster, or both. On the whole, the picture is fuzzy, but it's fair to say that there was chaos in Greece. It was even worse in Anatolia, the homeland of the Hittites. Archaeological evidence suggests that every major city in Anatolia may have been at least partially destroyed during this period. This was especially true up and down the coast. In fact, we now know that the city of Troy was destroyed at this time. Recent archaeological digs there have found arrowheads still lodged in the ruined walls of a city, and evidence of a fire. Further inland, things get a little more mysterious. The Hittite capital, which only a few years earlier was being protected by the king of Ugarit's army, was largely abandoned. It would later be stormed and burned, just like all the others. For a long time, this abrupt, region-wide collapse was inexplicable. Historians knew that it happened, but they couldn't tell you how or why. But in the second half of the 19th century, Egyptian archaeological discoveries provided a hair-raising and revolutionary explanation for this mysterious collapse. This inscription was discovered in an Egyptian temple in Medinet Habu. It changed our understanding of the late Bronze Age forever. Egyptian pharaoh Ramses III describes several waves of foreign invaders arriving on the shores of Egypt over the course of 30 years. The inscription at Medinet Habu reads, "The foreign countries made a conspiracy in their islands. All at once, the lands were removed and scattered in the fray. No land could stand before their arms. They were coming forward toward Egypt, while the flame was prepared before them. They laid their hands on the land as far as the circuit of the earth, their hearts confident and trusting. Our plans will succeed." The Egyptians had some guesses as to who these invaders were, but they couldn't be certain. Historians have simply taken to calling them the Sea Peoples. We now think that the Sea Peoples were a loose coalition of groups from all across the Mediterranean. We can't be 100% sure of this, but we can say with some confidence that most of them were from Sicily, Sardinia, Crete, and the Aegean coast, maybe some other places too. Some wore feathered headdresses, while others wore horned helmets or simple leather caps. Some wore kilts, while others wore tunics. Some went into battle wearing full body armor, while others fought shirtless. What united these groups was their reason for coming. This was a migration. We know that they came on boats and on wagons, with their families and all of their worldly possessions. What brought them here is another question that we'll get into later. By the time the Sea Peoples finally arrived in Egypt, virtually every other Bronze Age civilization had been overrun. The Mycenaeans in Greece, the Hittites in Anatolia, Canaan in the Levant, Cyprus in Cyprus, all gone. Some states further inland were less affected by the invasions, but they were so weakened by the collapse of their neighbors that their days were numbered as well. When the Sea Peoples began their migration, they couldn't have imagined that it would have been this successful. All the way up until Egypt, every attempt to resist them failed. Why? In order to understand this, we need to talk about Bronze Age warfare. Chariots. Chariots, chariots, chariots. Bronze Age warfare in Western Asia was all about chariots. In the early Bronze Age, they were primarily used for transportation, but by the Intermediate Bronze Age, the militaries of every major state in the region were completely designed around the use of the chariot. A chariot of this period usually consisted of a team of 2 horses pulling a team of 2 humans, 1 driver and 1 archer. The humans, I mean. The horses and the driver were trained for speed and maneuverability, and at full speed could move roughly twice as fast as a human could run. The archer wielded a composite bow, not as clumsy or random as a regular bow. It was smaller and lighter, with better accuracy, range, and firepower. It was a state-of-the-art piece of technology. In this period, it could punch through roughly 3 inches of metal. So a full chariot team had everyone else beat when it came to speed, range, and firepower. This is a bit of a tangent, but it's said that the moment the HMS Dreadnought touched water in the year 1906, every other ship in the ocean became obsolete. The HMS Dreadnought was the best in the world when it came to speed, range, and firepower, which meant that it could just sit back and pick off enemy ships at a distance, and then outrun anybody who came too close. Like the Dreadnought, Bronze Age chariots had speed, range, and firepower. Like the Dreadnought, they could just sit back and pick off enemies at a distance. Like the Dreadnought, they could outrun anybody who came too close. An This revolutionized Bronze Age warfare. It was expensive as hell. Horses had to be specifically bred and trained, which cost a small fortune. The equipment was all handcrafted by artisans and cost at least twice as much as the horses did. The loss of a single chariot was catastrophic, and so chariots went into battle with thousands of inexpensive spearmen and archers deployed in a defensive line. The infantry could protect friendly chariots that needed to repair or regroup, or they could rush forward and destroy enemy chariots that were damaged or caught in a bad position. As we get into the late Bronze Age, the region was in the midst of a chariot arms race. And then the Sea Peoples came. Unlike the Bronze Age civilizations of Western Asia, the Sea Peoples fought on foot. Instead of using spearmen and archers to form a defensive shield for their chariots, the Sea Peoples wielded long swords and javelins, and they fought with an unmatched aggression. I've seen the Sea Peoples described as skirmishers, but I don't think that quite covers it. A much better word I've seen used is runners. The Sea Peoples were runners.
Coming, calm down. Oh, hey. You guys got the groceries? I'll get those.
There's another box too.
Grand. Just bring it up here and I'll get it in the kitchen. Man, that thing is falling apart as we speak. Don't do this to me. Don't do that to me either. Stop it. There we go. Excuse me. Curses.
They were highly mobile and weren't locked down into tight little groups like the spearmen were. Instead, their way of fighting was to explode outwards in unexpected bursts. This fact made the Sea Peoples chariot killers. The whole reason a chariot was effective was that they could outrun a person on foot. But was the same true of 10 people? 100 people? What if they were coming at them from different directions? What if they got cut off from the main group? Chariots couldn't exactly turn on a dime, so it only took one wrong move for the Sea People's runners to overwhelm and destroy a chariot. And like I said, the loss of a single chariot was catastrophic. The defensive line of spearmen and archers were supposed to protect against something like this, but in practice, the highly mobile Sea Peoples were able to get behind their lines quite easily. As a response to these new tactics, defensive lines grew and grew and grew. It appears that by the end of this period, the armies facing off against the Sea Peoples were 10 times larger than they were at the beginning. As I said before, towards the end of this period, Egypt was pretty much the last state standing. Virtually.
Is that all of them?
Yep.
Okay.
Make sure to put it all away.
Will do.
Bye, Chuck. See you later.
Bye. See you. Stay safe.
Alright, I will.
Okay. Boy, I come off as the most boring idiot on YouTube.
All of its neighbors had fallen to the Sea Peoples.
How many mobs are gonna try and spawn here? And that's an actual animal, so I don't feel good about shoving it off the edge. You, however, are an abomination, not an animal.
The Egyptian army had become. Here's a row of spearmen, and then a row of archers, and here's the pharaoh Ramses III, personally leading the battle, standing on the bodies of his enemies.
Yes, one does.
Here's the mighty chariot, prominently but not playing a decisive role in the battle. Clearly, the bulk of the fighting was among the spearmen and the archers. In writing, we are told that the Egyptians protected the mouth of the Nile by making a wall out of ships, each loaded with archers. We're also told that every spearman in Egypt was in position and waiting for the Sea Peoples to land on shore. The inscription at Medinet Habu tells us the final result of the battle. Here are some sea peoples taken captive and being led away. Here is some unspeakable carnage. Of course, this is a piece of Egyptian propaganda, but we have no reason to doubt that this was the result. After so many incredible successes, the sea peoples were finally defeated in Egypt. But even in victory, Egypt suffered. From this moment forward, Egypt was a second-rate power, and even after 1,000 years, it had not yet fully recovered. The fact that Egypt was so badly damaged by the collapse of international trade is a clue. There has to be more to the story than the sea people. Scholars have been pulling at this thread for the last couple of decades, and the evidence is convincing. Bronze Age civilizations needed bronze, obviously. Without a constant supply, many of their cutting-edge technologies began to deteriorate. Bronze is made by combining 9 parts copper with 1 part tin. Copper is a relatively common metal, but it's difficult to mine. Most of these Bronze Age civilizations had their own small mining operations, but the real action was in Cyprus. Cyprus was absolutely swimming in copper, and mining it was dead easy. This transformed the island into a fabulously wealthy hub of international trade. That brings us to tin. Tin is funny because it's actually extremely rare, and it's not evenly distributed across the earth. There was a tiny tin mine in Anatolia, controlled by the Hittites, but it didn't produce nearly enough to supply the entire region. After that, there weren't many options. The next closest major source was all the way over in modern Afghanistan, more than 3,000 kilometers away. You can just imagine how expensive and dangerous it was to haul tin all the way from Afghanistan to Cyprus. There were alternative sources, but it was tough. There was a smaller mine in Italy and another small mine in Spain, but these alone couldn't meet demand. There wasn't another deposit on the scale of the Afghanistan mine until you get all the way up to Cornwall on the island of Britain. It might shock you to learn that people actually made this trip. It was a risky voyage, but if you made it back, it was worth it. So as you can see, any disruption to this supply chain meant that it was no longer possible for Bronze Age civilizations to produce bronze, which by very definition was a problem. So the argument goes that the Sea People's attacks disrupted international trade, slowed down the production of bronze, and weakened every state in the region. It was a vicious cycle. More attacks meant less trade. Less trade made everybody even more vulnerable to additional attacks. As the Bronze Age states collapsed, the situation grew even more dire. But there might have been more to this story. Even if you put the whole international trade angle to the side, this entire region may have been much weaker than it seemed. According to experts, the migration of the Sea Peoples coincided with a 50-year period where Western Asia was riddled with massive earthquakes.
I'm no scientist, but it does seem bad.
Absolutely wrecking the economy in the region. Cities that were abandoned for mysterious reasons may have in fact been abandoned after a seismic event. There's at least some evidence of earthquakes destroying cities in Greece and slowly moving on in Cyprus. Greece seems to have got the worst of it. Egypt got off easy, which is an interesting fact, considering that they were the only major state left standing. Maybe the earthquakes played a role. Now that around this time, there was some kind of environmental emergency. It turns out that, as expected, Northern Europe was badly affected by this, which caused that domino effect. The surprising thing is that the effects were even more severe than the Western Mediterranean. report this finding. Apparently, during one of these days, crop failures across the entire Hittite Empire. One letter from the Hittite king to the king of Egypt urgent request to and he was, "It is a matter of life and death." Another letter from the nearby city of something called the systems collapse theory. According to the systems collapse theory, the arrival of the sea peoples was actually a medium-level threat. Under normal circumstances, the Bronze Age civilizations should have been able to fight them off, but they weren't living under normal circumstances. Changes to the climate had resulted in widespread famine across the region. This resulted in the depopulation of key cities. The famine and the depopulation then led to internal instability, where some local populations rose up and overthrew their ruling classes. We have evidence that this happened with some frequency over this period, especially in Greece. These factors, and the invasion of the Sea Peoples, caused a collapse in the international trade system, which just made everything all the worse. Oh yeah, and the region was absolutely riddled with earthquakes. The Bronze Age civilizations in Western Asia were dealing with 5 crises at once, with each crisis creating a multiplier effect on all the other ones. And then the Sea Peoples came. We still don't fully understand how or why the Bronze Age abruptly collapsed, and perhaps we never will, but the systems collapse theory is pretty good. One thing that I will point out is that for all of its clever work collecting pollen samples and studying ancient technology, the systems collapse theory does slightly de-emphasize the destruction wrought upon Bronze Age civilizations. The fact that countless cities were destroyed is undeniable. We have the physical evidence. The systems collapse theory argues that less of these were destroyed by the Sea Peoples than originally thought. And this might be right. We have all that evidence of environmental changes and earthquakes, but we don't know for sure. The scholarship in this area is still ongoing. There have been significant breakthroughs just within the last 10 years. We may see some definitive answers in our lifetimes. But for now, we don't know. We see the aftermath of the Bronze Age collapse, but when it comes to the root cause, all we have are theories.
Gotta love those theories. Someday, MathPat's 4th channel ever turns out to be history theory. Can't believe I almost called it History Channel. Even though History Channel might as well be history theory at this point.
Guys are still alive, and I think they're licking somebody's foot. Nasty.
Just gotta get in there with the weird humor.
It occurred to me one day that Sparta, though among the most thinly populated of the states, was evidently the most powerful and most celebrated city in Greece, and I fell to wondering how this could have happened. But when I considered the institutions of the Spartans, I